welcome back to the podcast. I'm the host, Sean Boyce. I'd like to welcome my guest to the show today, Steve Toy, who is the CEO of Memrise. Hello, Steve. How are you? And welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Very excited to talk more about your wonderful language learning application. In fact, I myself am a big fan. I've used it for years and I've gotten a lot of value out of it. I've made my way up to so-called intermediate French, although I'll let the French people decide how effective I am at currently. But Steve, before we kind of dive in too much detail, it would be lovely if we could hear a little bit more about your background and perhaps how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I think on the whole, I'm just a technology journeyman, and I've been working in the tech space since almost my first job out of college. And in that endeavor, I've done kind of every role out there, from finance to HR to sales to every level of management, and done it in all kinds of industries, from the music industry with Billboard to the online travel industry with Fareportal. I worked with EY for a while as I was doing an earn-out from a company I sold to them. I've worked with Apollon in the IAC empire. And the main through line to all of it has been technology, for sure, many times education, and it is paired nicely with my nonprofit side of my life, where I have for a long time been helping adults learn how to read who, for whatever reason, didn't learn how to read by the time they got to adulthood. So adult literacy is my passion. Education and technology have all come together nicely to land me here at Memrise.
Now, it sounds like Memrise kind of pulls together any number of those different initiatives and experience that you have from where you've been to be a great combination in terms of what the product and the company itself does. But that would probably be the next best place to go. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about Memrise, what it is, who it's for? Any more information like that would be helpful.
Sure. I mean, at the very, very highest level, we're a language learning app, like many of the other ones that you've heard about there. However, we have a slightly different take on what a language learning app should be and what language learning is about. And I think that take kind of hews more closely to what we all kind of know instinctively, which is the best way to learn a language is to go in country and survive. Right? You learn more French by hanging out in France for 2 weeks than you do for hanging out in high school for 2 years. It just is the reality of it, and we all kind of know it. And the reason that that's the case is because you're constantly learning words while you're there, but then you're hearing those words in real life, surrounded by words you don't know, coming at you when you're not expecting it, different accents, and your brain and your ear has to decode those words. And that's an important part of the learning process. And then you actually have to use those words. And quite frankly, most people are kind of reluctant to speak when they're learning a language because they're worried they're going to sound like a 5-year-old. And that judgment, that fear of judgment is what stops people. But when you're in country, if you want a sandwich, if you want a beer, if you want a train ticket, you're going to have to use a language, particularly your French, because that waiter, that ticket taker, while speaking perfect English, is going to make you use French. So that's our pedagogy. The best way to learn a language is to go in country and survive. And we kind of boil it down into the 3 words: learn, immerse, communicate. Learn the words, hear it in real life, then start to use them. And that learn, immerse, communicate loop is what we've been building in our product. That is what distinguishes us from the other products that are out there, which are all very good at the learn part, but the immerse and the communicate part, up until recently, nobody could really deliver on. But now we can because of the technologies that are out there.
It's so interesting because I have some firsthand experience with this because I've played with the different apps that you're mentioning as well too. There's no shortage of language learning tools out there in the wild, as I'm sure you're very aware. And it's been really interesting to get to learn which focus in which area of specialty. And as I've been trying to pick up languages as what was just a native English speaker, learning French pretty much from zero, I had it in high school in the United States, but as most of us know, that doesn't go very far.
Yeah.
So basically starting from zero, and Memrise was super helpful. I was working with a tutor via a platform called italki, which was helpful to get connected to them. And most of the tutors I was connecting with were really pushing Memrise as a language learning solution and complement to the studying that I was doing. I found that really helpful. In particular, as you're really hitting on that immersion component, I spent a couple of months, about a year or two ago at this point, over in France, and man, what a difference that made in terms of picking things up, learning it, just having that opportunity. But one of the things I found really helpful from Memrise, it's a particular feature I believe that you offer, where I'm able to kind of listen to and hear multiple like native French speakers or people in France or French speaking regions of the globe actually say the words that I'm trying to learn, which was a really interesting and tricky thing to figure out, as I was like just working with one tutor, or maybe for folks of us out there that don't have someone that they're working with as a tutor, trying to learn the language from different people speaking it in their different dialects and how it may sound different. I found that to be really helpful. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about some of the differentiators for Memrise when in a relatively crowded space or in a space with other options, and how you've seen that be most effective for your target market users and customers that are really trying to achieve a goal or solve a particular problem.
Yeah, well, you did a great job explaining one of the key things that makes us different from the rest is that when you're learning words, we have native speakers on camera saying the words to you, and multiple native speakers at that. And that is one of the things that has always distinguished ourselves from the pack. But we have also endeavored to try to get ever longer versions of video in front of people in order to hear more sentences and paragraphs like you will encounter in the wild. But it has always been a tough thing. I mean, that's a lot of video to create. And when you do create that video, you got to try to understand what words people are going to have at their disposal from what they've learned in order to have a chance of understanding the video. Because if they don't understand a single word, they're going to go away. And we and every other educational institution and application and product out there has tried to accomplish the objective by making a lot of video. But it's costly, it's time consuming, and quite frankly, we're educators. We're not making videos for Netflix for a reason, because that'd be more profitable, right? And so what new technology has just given us the potential to do here is flip the script. There is infinite content out there. And so now what we are doing is, rather than making video content, we are using the AI techniques that are available to us today, and we are deconstructing the video that's out there into its words and phrases. We match it to our dictionary so that we can match it to the words that each individual user knows. And by doing this, we can take the world of content and start to filter it by each individual's words that they have learned, their level of learning. And that way, we give them content that is within their reach, within their ability to comprehend. And by scooping up lots and lots of it, we can give people content that is interesting to them. You can learn French with football. You can learn Italian with cooking. You can learn Spanish with music. Right? Whatever you like, we scoop up enough and filter it for you. Then we've put stuff at your fingertips that is available to you based on what you've learned, so that you can train that ear with longer form content. And that is one of the two legs of our three-legged pedagogical stool that we have added to the product as of late, using AI technologies that have just become available as of late.
That's super interesting. I definitely want to dive into this topic more. That particular point that you raised, I think, is a really important one. I've heard, I think, several stand-up comedians make the joke that it's not that I can't speak with my friends in Spanish, it's that the things that I know how to say in Spanish, they never say. Like, there are many books in the library or something like that, right? So that really brings to the forefront the topics that you're speaking about, And that's what's been really interesting in picking up language learning as well, too, using a tool like Memrise is learning like these thematic concepts, checking into a hotel, cooking a dinner, right? The things I would actually do,
Right.
as opposed to what's been traditionally in some of the older textbooks. So that's really exciting. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the unique, like, I want to dive into the AI that you're investing in and with the capabilities there, but can you talk about some of the unique problems or challenges you're excited about this technology to help solve as it pertains to language learning through, users and customers of Memrise?
Yeah, well, there's two big buckets. And the first big bucket already talked a little bit about, which is we shouldn't be making content for our users. We should be filtering the world's content for our users based on what they've learned. And the fact of the matter is that is what is really exciting. Now, we're not filtering absolutely everything all at once. So this technology is also going to allow us to determine what to go out and get. If you start using our product and we find that you like watching, sports videos while you are, immersing yourself and training your ear to hear the words you've learned in real life, well, then we can say, okay, let's go out and take in some more sports videos and gather that. And AI can help us do that. We can also start to look at the words that people have learned and say, okay, here is 1 million users that have learned 250 words each, a different 250 words. And which of these users don't have a lot of video to look at? Okay, once we know that, how can we find that video out in that infinite ocean that exists out there so that we can bring it to our users? So that's one of the buckets of problems that we're excited about solving. And the second bucket is the ability to get people talking. As I mentioned earlier, people don't want to talk, even to their italki tutor, because they're worried that they'll be judged. They probably won't, but they're worried that they will. And we can take the fear of human judgment out of the equation with a bot that can not only go over the same topic over and over again, like walking into a coffee shop in Paris and ordering a cappuccino in the morning. They never get bored, never gets judgmental, so you can practice and practice, get a lot of at-bats. But we can do it across a whole host of topics. If it's not coffee, if it's ordering the train ticket or checking in the hotel or getting a reservation or talking to a friend, all of those things we can do with human-like conversation and gentle nudges and hints and corrections along the way. So those are the two things super excited about.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what the future of being able to learn language is going to be like with having this kind of technology available. So I'm curious to get your take on this. So as I've been trying to learn French and pick that up, one of the reasons why ultimately I decided to start working with a tutor is because I was only able to get myself so far doing it via like self-service mechanisms, the apps and things like that. And it was really helpful to have more of a customized approach, some of what you're talking about, to specifically where I was or where I was stuck, right? Because a universal learning plan may not necessarily apply to everyone, right? As in customized training can go a little bit further. So I found that really helpful, but I'm interested to hear from your perspective how far you think the experience through your product Memrise can go, leveraging AI as a technology to emulate a similar type of experience. Anyway, curious to hear a little bit more from you in terms of what is the user experience intended to be like on Memrise, leveraging AI capabilities?
Yeah, well, so in order to answer that question and build up systematically from a first principle, there is a very understandable first principle about learning another language, which is learn the words about that you're going to use. If you are looking to travel and you're not a fishmonger, you don't need to know 50 different words for fish out there, right? It's just not going to be helpful to you. And every polyglot out there in the world will tell you the same thing. Learn the words that are important to you. You don't have to learn every member of the family if you have no nephews and cousins, right? Just learn the words that are important to you. So starting from that basic first principle, we can build up from there. Now, most education systems have a curriculum, right? Here's the words that you're going to learn. Even the most, renowned of the players in the language learning space kind of march you through a curriculum. These are the words that you're going to learn, and this is the order you're going to learn them in. And that is not very flexible. We, on the other hand, let you go pick up whatever you want and start learning that. And we then combine it with lots and lots of video content. We can scoop it up at a far faster rate than we can make it so that you can immerse yourself in that content. And that opens the door to some interesting things. For example, businesses that need to continually improve the English skills of their customer support group can actually have lessons made from the customer support videos that they have in their business. And so now the users, their employees, will be learning the words and memorizing the words that they use in their day-to-day life. They will be hearing the words from the videos that talk about their very business, learning the product as well along the way. And they can practice with a bot that is trained to be a customer that doesn't know how to use the product that the company sells. That's how tightly we can train these products. So you get the whole learn, immerse, communicate loop based on the business and the product of a given company. We can get that specialized, and that is of interest to the employee because it helps them do their job. It's interesting to the business, and it is customized in a way that you just never could do before.
It's very exciting. Definitely looking forward to learning more there and experiencing what's probably expected to be pretty unique in the language learning space. So that's all exciting stuff. I'd also love to hear you talk a little bit about performance at Memrise in terms of where it's been and where it's going, like where your plans are to improve from where you are. And when I say performance, I'm speaking more around terms of like active usage. What does the user base look like at the moment, user customer base? And then what are your plans to grow it from here? Like what potential do you think it has, leveraging some of these new technologies and adding some of these features to potentially open up new spaces?
Sure. So there's lots of ways to slice and dice our world, but we have users in every country in the world. We get most of our paying customers for our freemium business from US, UK, Western Europe, which is no surprise. We get more money from iOS users than we do from Android users, which is no surprise. Our users tend to range, the spectrum of age, and we're probably 55% female, 45% male. We probably have a larger chunk of users between 18 and 45 than 45 and above. We have many people, so the language that most people are learning is English. So 40% of our user base is learning English. Those folks usually come from areas other than US, UK, Western Europe, as you might guess. And they are usually using the service in order to improve their life, right? A taxi driver in Hungary makes more money when they speak English. A waiter in Caracas makes more money when they speak English. So that is one group. The group that is learning other languages and coming from Western richer countries tend to be using it for travel reasons, for work reasons, and for connecting with other people, family, in-laws, and so on. Their partner is Italian or German, and their in-laws, or their partner's parents are speaking another language. So that's broadly how it all breaks down. So I'll stop there. You asked a couple questions. I can keep going, but I'll pause for a moment.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I like thinking quite a bit of what I talk about in some of the work that I do is this focus on ROI and thinking of it in terms of the ROI for the users. I hadn't considered that possibility before, but it makes a lot of sense, is opening up the economic opportunity for those that have the ability to learn these languages in different parts of the world and what that means for them. So there's ROI invested for them, of course, as well also. So that's a really interesting angle. I think also what I'm curious to know more about is your plans for kind of growing and scaling from here. What interests you the most? What areas would you like to kind of expand into? Like what is furthering the mission or expanding on it from here look like in terms of solving additional problems or helping the customers and users you already have with what else they want, like what they want next?
Yeah, so the answer in a word is scale. And that scale applies to both our revenue and our users, as well as what we are offering our users. So the user side is pretty easy. We want more users who are paying us for our premium service. If that happens, we will have a higher top line and a line that goes up and to the right, which everybody in the world loves. So we're definitely pushing that direction. The way that we are going to push in that direction is to continue to scale the offering that we have in a way that was previously just inconceivable, right? We have a path at this moment to ingesting more than 1 million videos before the end of the year, right? We could never have made that many videos ever, right? So, and we're on a path to making ever more, conversations that people can have. Go and order a coffee in Paris, get a train ticket in Madrid, tell somebody that you love them in Hungary, and so on. And so we're just looking to scale, this because, as I said at the beginning, we believe the best way to learn a language is go in country and survive. And it takes a lot of conversations and a lot of video to replicate going in country.
I'm particularly interested as well, too. So another thing that you mentioned as well, what the largest percentage of your users in terms of what they are learning. Sounds like English is the largest category. I'd be curious to also learn from you in terms of what you've seen in terms of trends there as well. Also, as people are migrating around, moving around, picking up new languages, what the demand looks like, and does that influence, ultimately the direction in which you take the product at all?
Yeah, I mean, we do see some things, certainly with, big events, right? Beginning of the pandemic, we saw a general spike as is. Everybody's like, hey, I got 6-8 weeks to kick it at home. Let me learn that language, right? But it was a little longer than 8 weeks, and therefore the enthusiasm was a little bit more like the New Year's resolutions that happen every year, and a little less like a sea change over time. But we also see things like, as the unfortunate events in Ukraine have showed us, and people quickly exit to their neighboring countries in, Poland and the like. More people saying, hey, I gotta learn some different languages in order to settle in new places. So we definitely see shifts along those lines happening. But none that I would say are, truly, sustained shifts. We saw a huge spike in people wanting to learn Korean when Squid Games came out. Right? They loved it, and it was sort of goosed along by BTS. The BTS army just all wanted to, learn Korean. But it was a little bit of a flash in the pan, and as the series ends and BTS disbands, we've returned to normal levels.
Very cool. Yeah, that's super interesting. And from your perspective as well, too, as CEO of a company like Memrise, curious to hear from you. Like, what are some of the principles or philosophies that you feel are important for leading a company like Memrise successfully into the future with all these changes happening, right? These global events, language learning demand shifting or changing, and then the development and the invention of new technology, which affects product development as well. How do you pull those things together around kind of a cohesive strategy and, motivate your team to want to capitalize on the opportunity that makes the most sense for providing value for users and customers?
Yeah, good question. And here, I would say that I probably don't have anything that is, earth-shakingly new from the management ranks. It is simply getting a good compass setting, a good point on the horizon, right? Our point on the horizon, our biggest purpose is to help people enhance their minds to enhance their worlds. And we choose to help them enhance their minds with language. And, we could do it with astrophysics or, any other, philosophical endeavor, but we chose language because we have skills in that area. And we define language as people understanding each other, not passing a test, not having perfect grammar, not having perfect pronunciation, but people understanding each other. And that's how you enhance your life, by understanding each other better. So that's our big North Star. And then our compass setting, our immediate compass setting is to help people acquire language profitably, and that is profitably to us. And to do that, we measure two major things. Time on task by our users, because it takes time to learn a language. If you don't spend the time, you're not going to learn it, period. And EBITDA is our metric for profitability. And those break down a little bit further into registered users and conversion rate and average order value on the profitability side. And on the time on task side, there's retention and engagement that we are constantly working. And so we say, okay, we're here to help people acquire language profitably. We have a pedagogical belief that all three legs of the stool, learn, immerse, and communicate, must be there in order to do that. So we are going to take these three pedagogical, products that we have put into our product, and we are going to continually try to get people to spend more and more time engaging with these ways of learning, immersing, and communicating. And we're going to make more mistakes than we get things right along the way. So everybody, get out there, start to make an awesome product guided by this compass setting and this reasoning. And if we all understand it, then there need not be any command and control, because we can all stand on the parapet of good reasoning and our compass setting to make good decisions most of the time. And when we mess up, we mess up. We learn from it and we go on. So that's really the main thing that we do. And since we're helping people be a little bit better tomorrow than they were today, everybody feels pretty good about what we're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Makes a ton of sense. And I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate you making the time. It's exciting to learn more about Memrise. And the next question I had for you was, where can folks go to kind of learn more and experience the app themselves?
Yeah, well, so on the web, it's memrise.com, and that's spelled Memrise. I think we have a cool coaster here right now. And if you go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, it is Memrise, and we will come up. One of our competitors might have bought an ad up top. Just skip right past that and get over to Memrise. Those are the main places where you can find Memrise.
Very cool. And you're looking for the yellow tile, right? It's the
exactly. It's the yellow tile, Memrise right there.
Nailed it.
That's what you're looking for.
Very cool. And then how about for yourself? Is there anyone in particular that, if interested to get involved or more active with what Memrise is working on, should reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can get me at steve@memrise.com if you want to. Twitter is SC Toy. And you can catch me there. And Steven C. Toy is the last little bit of the LinkedIn handle.
Very cool. Thank you, Steve. And for our listeners, we'll include that in the show notes as well, too. Anything that Steve has shared and other Memrise related links. Again, Steve, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything other parting thoughts you have for us before we wrap up?
Not really, other than to say that, we are pretty excited about the world we're traveling into with all of this AI technology. It certainly has a dark side that people worry a lot about, but I think it's got more good, to be sure, and we're pretty happy to be, sailing into that future because we can do a lot together.
Fantastic and agreed. Thank you for being here, Steve. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Really had a good time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Product Launch. I hope you got value out of it. I like to feature product people on my podcast because that's who I love to help. I'm a product strategist, and I can help you scale your business and grow your profit through a product. If you'd like to learn more about how I can help you, email me at sean@nextstep.io. That's Sean, S-E-A-N, at nextstep, nxtstep.io. Or visit my website at nextstep.io. That's nxtstep.io.